Tokenization is not hard, though, I will say, right? So it's not about the technology being ready. It is about the money piece, I would say. And so the thing about tokenization that you really want to have happen is you want it to be an atomic swap with money so
Mm.
that, the thing trades, so that clearing equals settlement. This is the thing about Web3. Clearing equals settlement. You have to wait for Swift. You don't have to, do all of this, settle at the end of the day or T+2 or whatever it is. Like, we have atomic swaps at the layer one layer. By the way, on Algorand, it's in the layer one atomic swaps.
This content is brought to you by Uphold, which is a great crypto platform that I've been using since 2018. Uphold has all the top cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, and all the altcoins. In fact, they have 260 plus cryptocurrencies on their platform. You can also trade precious metals, stablecoins, and 37 fiat currencies. In addition, they are available in over 150 countries. And this platform is fully reserved. They do audits, so you can trust that your funds are safe, no commingling, no lending out your funds. If you'd like to learn more about Uphold, please visit the link in the description. Welcome to the Thinking Crypto podcast, your home for cryptocurrency news and interviews. With me today is Staci Warden, who's the CEO of the Algorand Foundation. Staci, great to have you on.
Oh, thanks. I'm so happy to be here.
Staci,
Where's your Algorand hat? What are
I
those?
know
Are those balls behind you or hats or what? Like, what's up with that?
it's like pillows, and when I
Oh,
had ordered
pillows.
these years ago, they didn't have the Algorand, so I will have to add one. But I am an Algo token holder, so I've followed Algorand for years. I've interviewed Sean and a bunch of other folks, Algorand, and I'm excited to speak with you to learn about all the latest developments.
Okay, swag department of the Algorand Foundation. If you are listening, get this man a pillow, an Algorand pillow.
Staci, before we talk all things Algorand, tell us about yourself, where you're from, and what's your professional background.
So I originally was born in New York City and I live in Washington, D.C. now. And I am an economist by training. And I've always worked in kind of developing countries and emerging markets and with small enterprises and businesses. And I moved more and more from, I guess my trajectory is econ to finance to crypto. I'm getting kind of better all the time, more cutting edge all the time as I go through my professional career, I guess.
Yeah, and that fascinates me because we've seen quite a few folks from TradFi leave the TradFi industry and come work in crypto. So tell us about that journey. What was your first encounter with Bitcoin? What was your aha moment? And when did you say, you know what, I want to go work in this industry?
Yeah, so I have always been very interested in access to capital. And I have always thought that access to capital means payments as a kind of a bedrock concept. And I am familiar with working in Africa and also in some places in Latin America where, somebody might have to spend a day walking just to pay their electricity bill and then back to their village because they can't get a bank account. And so I was able very early in my career to make a distinction between having a bank account and having access to finance. And of course, some of the countries that I worked in were really bleeding edge. So Kenya, had this Safaricom uh, um, um, uh, I always think HesabPay now, but their their M-Pesa offering was very much ahead of kind of traditional finance back in the United States. And it was so interesting to see, wow, these developing countries are really kind of leapfrogging payments that don't require you to have a bank account, born out of necessity. And the other thing that M-Pesa did was they allowed you to make payments from not a smartphone, like a flip phone. And
Mm.
the idea, and sitting next to you at a dinner, I will never forget this, the central bank governor of the Central Bank of Kenya. And he's explaining to me how he can pay his workers back in his farm in the village that he grew up in without ever leaving Kenya. And it gets to them instantly. And I remember this is, many years ago now, but thinking that's unbelievable. Like, that's unbelievable. And so I always sort of had my eye open for, like, how is this technology going to scale? How is it going to become globally widespread? And like, if Kenya can do it, like, why can't this be everywhere else, right?
Sure.
And so but I didn't have crypto on the brain then. And I was separately doing some training with the National Press Institute to train the press in the United States about financial markets topics. This was right after the global financial crisis. And it was such a good gig because I would hire an expert. So it's like, oh, what's happening with GSE reform, the reform of Fannie and Freddie? Oh, I'll just get this like GSE expert to come and do a lecture this week and blah, blah. And I had all these things. And so they requested Bitcoin. This is in 2013. I didn't have a Bitcoin expert. Like I had nobody to call. Like, who's going to give this lecture? But I was curious about it myself. And it had been around a couple of years then. For me, it had been around a year maybe. So I decided to figure out what it is. And I spent a bunch of time trying to figure out what it is. And I worked at a think tank. So it was possible in a think tank to like shut your office door and like bury yourself in a hole for 4 days, And so I did that and I kind of came out in love. I was like, this is unbelievable. And I thought that Bitcoin could do things at scale that it can't really do at scale. But then the more you learn about it, and then this very young, Vitalik Buterin comes in and he says, oh, money can be programmable. I was like, oh, money can be programmable? That's unbelievable. Oh, and you can build anything you want on the top of this? Oh, okay. Tough to look back after that, right? Tough to look back. But professionally, I got a lot of FUD and like, what is this? And, I worked for Mike Milken at the time.
Yeah.
And of course, Mike Milken is not interested in having his name all over the front page of the newspaper. Millions of people lost money in fake internet money. Mike Milken Institute is, so he was super, super skeptical about me spending, and I had a lot of things going on there as well. But I wrote an article for the Milken Institute Review, and it was downloaded like a gazillion times. And so the editor of the review is like, wow, people seem really interested in this topic. And then this is in 2013, we had a global conference, and there was this panel called like things that will blow your mind. That was the most downloaded panel of that conference. My Bitcoin panel was the second most downloaded panel of that conference. So it was like Bitcoin and crypto. And so then they started thinking, oh, maybe there's some interest in this. Maybe this is a topic that we should be on top of. And so then I started getting a bit more money and a bit more, kind of time allotment that I could pay attention to this. And then I just kept doing it. But it started out as kind of a side hustle. And then I started getting more and more into it, more and more. And then it's moving so fast, right? And then DeFi summer came, and you cannot do it halfway. You're either in or you're not in. And so I got in.
Wow. Now, there's an interesting dynamic happening with, for example, Jamie Dimon, who's the face of the banking industry, and comments he's made, despite what JP Morgan is actually doing. We've seen they've had a Bitcoin wealth fund testing tokenization, testing different blockchains. I'd even invested in Consensus, which was working on Ethereum. Yet you have these statements that will come from the likes of Jamie Dimon. And do you think it's because, like you talked about payments and the movement of money, they're getting disrupted, and that's why they're having the knee-jerk reaction? We don't like this. It's going to take our lunch eventually, or we're going to have to capitulate. What are your thoughts on that?
I worked for Jamie Dimon for, 8 years. And I got to tell you, they hate it when he does stuff like that, because they're like these bankers, they're hustling, they're trying to do. JP Morgan Onyx is a very good business. I mean, they're a very, very important player in, it's a permission chain, but they're really pushing the envelope of stuff. And so I do know that there's sometimes a disconnect between what, we used to call it the front office says versus the business that's really going on.
Sure.
I don't know, of course, Jamie Dimon does not call me and like get my views on things, but I don't think it's that. I think he, as a person, doesn't really he doesn't get it. Like, he thinks this is like ridiculous, and you're probably never going to persuade him that it's not ridiculous. But that doesn't mean that he stands in the way of his business lines pursuing things to make money. He will stand in front of that if it really, really, if he thinks that it's going to put the balance sheet of the bank at risk, right? Or if it's going to run them afoul of regulators in some way, right? Or something else. But he is and he's allowed to speak, and he's a very successful guy. So he's used to opining about what he thinks. But I don't think that he thinks institutionally that this is a big existential threat that he has to worry about. And I don't think that he issues directives internally to make people stop working on it. That again is my guess about what's going on there.
Yeah, and we've seen that from Warren Buffett and rest in peace Charlie Munger. Guys like similar to Jamie Dimon, they have been so uber successful in what they're doing with TradFi assets that the concept of these things, Bitcoin or blockchains and so forth, that doesn't seem appealing. And I don't know, they just have a knee-jerk reaction like, I don't talk to me about that. I don't care about it.
Yeah, but also, I mean, governments make money. The government, you grew up, if somebody my age, or especially if you're like 20, 30 years older than I am, money comes from governments. This is not something that you in your head separate. I mean, I have a friend, he's a very smart guy, very smart guy. And he's like, I want you to explain this to me. And I want to, and he was dropping his daughter off at college. So they were spending the weekend with me. So we got up early and he's like, okay, but I don't understand. The thing is, I just don't understand. Like, I don't understand it. Like, it's money. Money is and I said, if you would stop for a second and take a breath and stop saying you don't understand it and just listen to what I'm telling you about how it works, like, just open your mind a little, but the bedrock idea that money does not come from a government is very hard for somebody to get over, like, how could that be? you know it's like, but a lot of things are like that, right? Like, you can't, I mean, I remember videos when videos were coming across like a web page, and like I'm like, how does a video come on a web page? Web pages are static. Like, what is that? Like, how come there's things moving on what is obviously a static piece of technology? Like, I remember thinking that to myself, but you just got to get over that. You got to.
Yeah, it's fascinating because there's, like you said, there's this human element, and change in itself is hard for human beings, right? And you bring a very disruptive technology, and you have people who just like they have this knee-jerk reaction, or what is this? I hate it, or I don't know how to feel about it, or it scares me, so I'm not gonna even bother to educate myself about it.
Right.
So it's just funny. You get these mix of emotions, It's so. With that said, there's the S curve adoption, right? And Algorand obviously is building a lot of great technologies and doing a lot of things. When do you think we will hit that mass adoption? Is it like 10 years from now? It kind of like when the internet went from dial-up to broadband, and then you had tons of users come on board because it was less friction, it was easy to use, it was faster. And right now, there's a lot of great wallets and technologies and use cases being built that are going to be applied in the real world. What's your out? This is a hard question, but what's your outlook, as far as timeline when anybody can do something with this and you don't even have to think about it?
Yeah, I mean, timeline is, as you've intimated, a little tricky, but I do think that we as an industry have some wood to chop for sure. I mean, some of this stuff is just absolutely, existential. Like, you can't, it's about self-sovereignty.
Mm.
So self-sovereignty comes with responsibility that people don't really want. And you're talking about mass adoption, you know, memorizing a 25-word mnemonic, or keeping it, or being not being able to blame somebody if a bridge gets hacked. Like, the stuff that goes with the territory, people do not understand that.
Mm.
They don't like maybe too much owned by the government. But I mean, I actually see this a little bit myself from the foundation. They don't want people in our ecosystem, they don't want the foundation doing too much. And the foundation tries to do too much, they don't like it. When stuff goes wrong, they want somebody to call. They want somebody to DM. And, crypto in its purest form, there's nobody to call, right? And so I think and of course, the whole regulatory overlay also needs to, I think, everybody now has come to a convergence of views where it's not so much about the cypherpunks and being completely stateless, right? But it is much more about, okay, how can we fit into a regulatory environment that makes sense? And so I think the industry also was very surprised in the same way that the normals were surprised at all the stuff that went wrong in 2022, 2021, 22, right? We were also caught by surprise, right? And so we all, I think now that there needs to be sensible regulation around this space. And it's going to take stuff like that, how to make the customer onboarding experience easier, right? Like open your wallet and attach your wallet to like, what? No, like I'm not going to do that. I mean, we were, I mean, it's hard. And then the regulatory and then the kind of mass adoption comes because people are doing it and you're feeling a little bit left behind. And then also you have to see like, what is the point of this? How can it make my life easier in addition to just being an asset to hold? Number go up is kind of not enough for this to be really a widespread mainstream use case. And, these guys did not help us, I will say, right? Like they really set it back. People are still head down and building. But my aunt, for example, I hate to pick on my aunt, and plus everybody always says my aunt, but this literally was my aunt. She said, "Are you still in crypto? I thought they arrested that guy." It's like, that stuff just does not help, right? So do I have a time frame? No, but I mean, when I look at it, I just feel like we're like marching forward, and it's inevitable. I mean, it's just too good of a technology, and Algorand blockchain in particular is going to be at the forefront of this widespread adoption because it's built in a way that can handle these use cases at scale, right? We are all about scale. If you can do a really clever pilot, like who cares? Nobody cares about your pilot. Nobody cares if you can't scale that thing. That's cute. And, last year, 2 years ago, you probably could get a little price bump out of something like that, little vaporware announcement, tried and true method in crypto. And great. But like, that's not how you survive for the next 5 years, 10 years. That's not how you succeed in the next one. That's not who's going to be around in the next 5 and 10 years. Right.
Right. So let's talk a bit about the Algorand blockchain. You gave a bit of a preview there. Tell us about what makes it unique from other blockchains for folks who don't know. Obviously I know, but and maybe some of my listeners, but I'm thinking about the newbie who's coming in and like, what's Algorand?
Yeah. So Algorand is a second generation blockchain. It's very fast. It has a tremendous transaction throughput. So it does 10,000 transactions per second. It has a very light environmental footprint. And it has very low fees. So this idea of gas fees doesn't really exist. It's 0.001 algo to do a transaction. All of that comes from a consensus mechanism that our founder, Silvio Macaulay, he's a MIT professor. He won the Turing Award in computer science. And he, not for nothing, by the way, invented a couple of primitives that are very important in cryptography. So he did not have the idea of attaching money to any of this, but a couple of primitives that are very important in the crypto ecosystem more broadly: zero knowledge proofs, verifiable random functions. And in a blockchain, the juice all comes from the consensus mechanism. And he invented a very elegant consensus mechanism. And that consensus mechanism, it's called the Byzantine fault-tolerant consensus mechanism. The problem with those is that they don't scale very well because everybody has to come to an agreement, even if there's the idea is that everybody can come to an agreement, even if there's some bad actors. The point is the everybody, though, can't be like a million everybody's. They can't be like a million nodes because it just doesn't work. It can't scale and be fast if they all have to come to an agreement. So we had this very clever idea, which is that you could have a lot of nodes and sample among them in sort of 1,000-person committees, 1,000, kind of account committees. And those committees could come to an agreement. And that way you could be very fast and scale, but you could also have a decentralized approach. So it's like decentralized because you're picking from many of them, and it's scalable because you're only picking a few to come to this. And this approach means that when you make a transaction and the committee kind of decides immediately, you are instantly final. You're instantly final. And so, as you know, this is maybe a little technical for some in the audience, perhaps, but blockchains typically they gather up transactions like in the ether, and then they kind of fight to append the transactions. And if there's a tie, it's possible for a number of minutes or even up to an hour, two versions of the blockchain can exist, not forever, but just for a little. And these little soft forks happen a lot. And then when the winner is chosen, the other transactions kind of fall away. And so you end up with one, kind of very, very pristine list of transactions. Well, again, that works in most cases, but if you're in a traditional financial thing, and imagine a stablecoin, which for even a nanosecond exists on two different states of the world, even for a minute, that can't exist. And so we built a chain, the royal we built a chain. And the most important thing about it is that these transactions are final. But the fact that they're final instantly comes out of the things that I told you about before. This consensus mechanism that we have, that consensus mechanism also drives the scalability and the low cost and the kind of, it's not a heavy protocol. Other blockchains can be very fast, but they're very heavy. They require enterprise grade software. We're a very light protocol. So for example, when we started, you could run a node with a Raspberry Pi. Now you need a more performant laptop, high-end laptop, because we're a very performant chain now. But if I can just to summarize the picture of it, is that the quality of our consensus mechanism enables us to make some claims that other blockchains can't make.
Yeah, absolutely. And can you tell us a bit about some of the use cases you're targeting? Is it like tokenization, and DeFi, whatever it may be, and maybe highlights of some of the things that are projects that are being built? Hi, everyone. Pardon the interruption. I'm Tony Edward, the founder and host of the Thinking Crypto podcast. I have a huge favor to ask you. If you haven't subscribed as yet on YouTube or the podcast platforms, hit that subscribe button, hit the thumbs up button, hit the notification bell on the YouTube platform, and on Spotify or Apple or wherever you get your podcasts, please leave a 5-star rating and review. It supports the podcast. It allows me to bring great quality content to you. Thank you for your support, and I'll let you get back to the content.
Yeah, I mean, targeting is a little bit of a strong word to use for what a foundation in a blockchain does.
Sure.
So we don't get up in the morning and, it's not like our community really listens to us, anyway, they do what they want, our community, right? Our job is to make it so that anybody that wants to build anything has a good shot at it. So we are much more of an enabler than we are a director of things. I think of us as like Planet Algorand. Planet Algorand is not as big as Planet Ethereum, but it is an awesome planet. Like the air is clean, the lakes are good, the trains run really fast, they run on time. When, I don't know if I can do an instant finality analogy, but when you go someplace, you're instantly there. Like it's an awesome planet. It's like the best planet. And the job of the foundation is to make sure that everybody that's building there has good access to electricity and nicely paved roads and, all of that. So we are about embracing all of our builders and helping them succeed, right? Like that's our job. However, our builders tend to pick us because they want to build things at scale. And it's very interesting. Now we make it super easy because in the beginning, especially, it was not a pleasant blockchain to build on until our CTO, John Woods, came and he was like, yeah, this technology is unbelievable, but nobody can use it. It's a pain in the act to use it. And he, on his very first agenda, he and his team and our head of product, Alessandro, have been working very hard on this to bring a good developer experience with an algo kit, developer kind of environment and a fully Python environment built together with our friends at MakerX. But in the beginning, my point is, in the beginning, this thing was like not fun to build on, not fun. But still, we got a lot of builders because those builders who looked around and they said, on other chains, sort of your success is your demise, because when you start getting the scale, the blockchain kind of can't handle it. And the Algorand blockchain said, look, you got to be very efficient with your code, and you have to and made it in kind of like unfun in certain ways, but always able to help you. You can scale what you need to do on Algorand. And so we tend to self-select, I would say, companies that are trying to work on real world problems at scale.
Sure. Now, there have been reports over the years that different countries have been testing central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, on Algorand. I know a lot of these things are under NDAs and so forth, but what can you tell us, maybe number of countries or anybody who's looking to go into production soon? What can you tell us there?
Yeah, so I will say that when I heard this rumor too, when I came, I am I'm associated with the public chain. The Algorand Foundation is about the public chain. And if you're going to build a central bank digital currency, you are not going to build that on a public chain.
Right.
So I can talk myself blue telling people this. It is not about Algorand or Ethereum or whatever. No central bank is going to put their national currency on a public blockchain. It's not going to happen. And so, however, I heard that there were things happening at now they call themselves now Algorand Technologies, with some side chains that they might have been talking to some central banks about. I will say, though, that since I have been here, I have not heard of any of that happening. So I think maybe in the beginning, first couple of years, I'm a couple of years late. First couple of years, I think they did have a number of different conversations under NDAs, but as far as I know, and I do not know everything, but as far as I know, nothing is really going on over there in that regard. Now, there's a lot of stuff going on, with this incubator that the Banca d'Italia is having, but that's not CBD stuff. That's kind of atomic swaps for bond settlements on chain, and there are a number of other things, but that's very much now in a kind of an incubator process. So I know that's not a very satisfactory answer, but I don't think there's anything happening. I don't think anything really did happen that got too far. Nothing has happened since I've been here that I know about, and certainly nothing has happened that the foundation has ever been involved with, because it's just not. It's like it's just not going to happen. It's not going to happen.
Right. No, great point that they're not going to put it on a public blockchain. If it is, it's going to be some private side chain, right? Yeah, that absolutely makes sense. Now, there was news of an investment in HesabPay, if I'm saying that right. Tell us about that and how you're going to be working together.
Oh, so HesabPay is this is the word that kept coming to my mind when I was trying to think of M-Pesa earlier in the program. HesabPay is a mobile payments platform that works now in Afghanistan. So the founder's an Afghani gentleman, and he worked with a guy who is, I think he's a co-founder actually, worked in Mercy Corps for a long time on payments and fintech type issues. They founded this company together, and they are now doing all of and it's like mobile money payment. And if you don't have a smartphone, you get a little card with a QR code, and you can hold up your card, and then the merchant will scan it, and then it sends you a note on your flip phone to take money out of your account. And so they are now doing, I think they have banked 85% of the unbanked Afghanis. They have done 1.2 million, I think, electricity bill payments since they've kind of gotten going. And all of the record keeping is done on the Algorand blockchain for all of these payments. And they have all of the NGOs use these guys. I mean, they are just like everywhere in Afghanistan. So we made a $500,000 investment in them, and we are so excited about these guys. Now, here's a thing about this though. Okay, so anyway, so the reason that they use Algorand that they like is that because they have customers, especially these NGOs, and especially because of the country that they work in, these NGOs want to know where this money is going. And HesabPay, I mean, they're a small organization. They don't want to be like doing audits and going through the books and, having to like take time and do all that stuff with these NGOs. What they do is they say, look on the blockchain. It's right here. You can see every transaction, everything that happened, everything that was made. It's all very here. Have at it. Do your audit. It's very easy. And it saves them so much time, and it adds so much credibility to them because they are in a region where credibility is very hard to come by, right? And so it's a very impactful and very, very meaningful partnership. So, however, okay, so would they want to expand? Okay, where do they want to expand? They want to expand to like Syria, refugee camps, like all of these like really hard Libya, I think is another one that they're looking at. And you look at their roadmap and you think, okay, all right, they're like picking the absolute hardest possible thing that you can possibly do. And so I love them. I love them for that. I love them for that. They are really, yeah, they got a pipeline of like their next 4 countries are like the 4 hardest countries you can possibly do business with, and they're ready to go in 2024, and we're right there with them. In fact, our head of impact, Matt Keller, sent me a note just a couple of days ago saying, hey, I want to start up we're starting up a working group with a bunch of NGOs and UN agencies and representatives working in these like 4 crazy ass countries. And I was like, okay, go for it, knock yourself out. Good luck, guys. Hard stuff, hard, but they're yeah, those guys are unbelievable. You should have them on. I mean, this is where the rubber hits the road on this kind of stuff. They're very successful and they have a very hard job ahead of them.
Yeah, I would love an introduction. Get them on. That'd be great.
100%. Yeah.
Now, obviously, you guys got a lot going on. Are there any Web3 projects you want to highlight, or any partners you want to highlight that maybe are doing something interesting or cool?
Yeah, you get me in a lot of trouble by asking me questions like this, of course, because the podcast is only an hour long, right? And so then I get like DMs. How come you don't? No. So, so I have a couple of my usual suspects, but maybe I'll highlight a couple that I don't talk about as much.
Sure.
But one is an organization called LabTrace. I read a very scary article about, I think it was in the Boston Globe, that about Brigham and I don't know which, I think it was Brigham and Women's, but I apologize, Brigham and Women's, if it was not you. But they were doctoring images to show differences in like tumor size. So on the research end, this is a very, very famous research hospital. And a couple of people were accused, allegedly, of doctoring these images. Well, it turns out that when you do an MRI and you are trying to do a trial of a drug, you do an MRI beforehand and you do an MRI after a couple of months to see if the drug has worked on this like tumor, say. But I am not a medical professional, so this might not be like 100% right what I'm about to say, but the tumor will shrink immediately, typically with almost any medication, because it's like getting in there. The question is, though, does it last or does it immediately grow back big again? So the way to fudge how well your medication is doing is if you take the MRI immediately afterwards, where you get a pretty good reading, but claim that the reading was a couple of months afterwards. So the guys at LabTrace were like, I kind of feel like a blockchain with a timestamp on it might be a good way to approach this thing. So they went to, and of course they need the very best blockchain to do this. So they are on Algorand. So they went to Siemens, who's like the world's biggest maker of these MRI machines, and it is built into the machine. So there's no way that anybody can do anything. This MRI comes out, the Siemens machine stamps it, they send it to the Algorand blockchain. It's there, not the MRI. Don't anybody worry, not like the whole world cannot read your MRI, but the timestamp of this thing is right there. And so this to me really shows a way of the blockchain being able to it is, as Michael Casey kind of famously said in his first book, it's the truth machine, right? Like this is the truth of what happened. This is where the MRI took place, and nobody can dispute that now, right? So, so those kinds of things we're pretty excited. And AgroToken is another company that I don't spend as much time. I haven't talked about it very much recently, but this is a commodities-backed token that enables a farmer to start getting access to the liquidity around the harvest before the harvest takes place. And so if you plant your seeds in May and your harvest is in October, why can't you? But you need to invest in irrigation system ahead of time. You don't want to wait till October because then it's winter and then like you don't need your irrigation system as much anymore. So you can sell these tokens now and be able to monetize your future. Now, of course, you can do that by selling futures, right? But then you have to take a guess on the future price, and you have to have a well-functioning market that far out in advance. And this is just a much simpler way to do that. Now, a couple that I talk about all the time, which I will mention again, TravelX. I mean, these guys, do you know about TravelX?
Yeah.
Yeah. So these guys, they created a market where one does not exist. Secondary market for airline sales. Unbelievable, unbelievable company. And we get this like huge spike in transaction every time when they sign a new airline. So they signed their second airline in December, and our transaction volume just like kind of went through the roof. So we're excited about those guys. We have 166 million transactions this month. That is ahead of Near, Ethereum, Avalanche, Solana, everybody. Like we are cruising on transactions. World Chess also giving us a lot of transactions. Aura, the Aura coin, of course, giving us a lot of transactions. Can't forget our Aura coin, which is cool, actually, the Aura coin, because it is a proof of it. You have to juice these oranges, and to do that, you get these coins. But it's like a kind of a proof of work mechanism on a pure proof of stake blockchain. So I do think that's a very clever thing that I think is cool. We have a lot in prop tech, a couple of different companies working in prop tech, so that you can invest in very fine amounts of alternative assets, so control alt, music, A note, music, not registries, but music catalogs, rental properties. This is all, as you know, real world asset tokenization.
Right.
And we offer that in a number of different areas. Slice those babies up, make a more liquid market, make it so that households can invest in them. And Lofty AI, you get paid daily because this is Web3. You don't have to wait till the end of the month to get your rental income. You get your rental income every day. And you are, as a part of a DAO, they have these DAOs, these governance organizations, property by property by property. And they're all like, I mean, they all got together. Lofty just posted this on social like a week ago. They got together and like this woman had I think she had just had a baby, or her pet had just died, or something had happened to this woman. And so they all voted not to raise this woman's rent because she was going through some financial hardship, right? So like, it's very power to the people stuff. It's cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's exciting. And what you were mentioning about the farmers and the harvest and tokenizing that, I was just thinking about Larry Fink, recently saying tokenization is the future of finance, and you're going to have commodities and securities and all types of assets tokenized on the blockchain. And as you mentioned, fractionalization, true global markets, secondary markets. What is your outlook for tokenization, and are you expecting that to ramp up now that the institutions are paying attention and realize this is the future?
100%. What tokenization is not hard, though, I will say, right? So it's not about the technology being ready. It is about the money piece, I would say. And so the thing about tokenization that you really want to have happen is you want it to be an atomic swap with money. So that, the thing so that clearing equals settlement. This is the thing about Web3. Clearing equals settlement. You have to wait for Swift. You don't have to do all of this, settle at the end of the day, or T+2 or whatever it is. Like we have atomic swaps at the layer 1 layer. By the way, on Algorand, it's in the layer 1 atomic swaps, which if you are geeky, you care about that and you're quite impressed by that. And but it's the money piece that needs to kind of be solved. Now, if there were central bank digital currencies, that money piece and that atomic swap could happen no problem at all.
Mm.
If there are stable coins, though, there's always going to be this kind of question about at the time of your swap, is that stable coin going to be worth the fiat that it's pegged to or not? There'll always be a little bit of that question. So it's a little trickier to do. But we're pretty excited about the idea of digital money, digital euro, not a stable coin, but digital money on the blockchain. Like Quantos, for example, has a digital euro
Mm.
on regulated by the Dutch central bank on Algorand, and so they can do, atomic swaps to their heart's content with tokenized assets. And yeah, we are expecting some big news out of that space for sure, for sure.
Mm. I want to talk about regulations, and I know Algorand, the algo token, has been mentioned in different lawsuits against the industry, like Coinbase, Bittrex, and so forth. But you're not the
Has
only
it?
token. Yeah,
I didn't know that. Oh.
yeah, yeah. I mean, obviously, Algo and a bunch of other tokens, right? It's not just Algo, but we're in a battle right now with regulator, even Chair Gensler, who's once talked really highly of Algorand, but now seems to be attacking the industry in a certain manner. What are your thoughts on that? And could we see crypto regulations this year?
Well, my first thought is like, why did we have to start our name with an A? Because we're always like listed first on these kinds of things. It's like, the worst, honestly, was when Terra Luna blew up because it was an algorithmic stablecoin. I mean, I must have spent 6 months explaining that Algorand was not an algorithmic stablecoin. This was like a little bit of FUD that I was not expecting to kind of fight against. But yeah, we do not appreciate the fact that we are just like walking down the sidewalk minding our own business and we get shot with a stray bullet in some kind of like gang street fight that not between us. It has nothing really to do with us, and like a
Right.
stray bullet comes over and kind of hits us. It's like not something that I appreciate, honestly. We do not believe that we're a security, and anyway, we don't issue these tokens in the United States anyway. We never have. So we're a Singapore-based company. We stay very clear of the U.S. regulatory perimeter, but we think we're a utility token, not a security, and I think that that's pretty clear if you look at kind of the stuff that we're involved in.
Sure.
Do I think we will have a sensible regulation in 2024? Don't get too mad at me, but no, I do not think so. I do not think, not in the United States. I think what will happen is that jurisdictions that are really thinking hard about this
Mm.
will continue to make progress. In the UAE, for example, in Japan, they just passed stablecoin legislation. MiCA in Europe has made some very important advances. All of this stuff. Now, I will say, though, that there are probably some very good second mover advantages to maybe waiting it out a little bit. And then if you do, you can kind of see what's working other places. So what I'm hoping is that process is actually taking place behind closed doors, that there is a little bit of a wait and let's see and let's cherry pick from the best ideas. And I don't know if that's happening, but I hope that it is happening. But do I really, if I had to like, if you put a gun to my temple and said, are we going to have sensible crypto legislation? Now, one thing I will say though, is I think the chances of having legislation are better than the chances of having regulation, if I had to guess.
Mm.
Yeah. So I think, and I think some of these court cases have made it clear that
Yeah.
the legislation is not clean enough for regulators to make decisions. And so some legislative authority needs to take place. I hope that does happen, but I don't.
And it goes back to what we were talking about early in the interview of um some of TradFi and just the way the world has worked. This technology is so disruptive. We're seeing almost an attack against it. And do you think there's a bit of that happening where, look, the regulators are part of the government, obviously, and they're going to support the Treasury and support the Fed and support the big banks that are working with them. And some of this is we're going to slow you guys down as much as possible until we're able to catch up to it. Because it almost seems that way. Maybe it isn't, but it just seems like that from optically from looking from the outside.
I don't know. I mean, I do not know what goes on in their heads necessarily at all, but I think it's just really, really hard. I think it's just really hard. Like,
Mm.
is this money? Is this an asset? Is this a commodity? Like, it's just hard to think about it. It's a shapeshifter crypto, right? Like the thing is, it's the beauty of it is that it can be so many different things. It's so fit for purpose, right? And so it's really hard. And the 1933 Act and the 1934 Act, like 1933 and 1934, like we didn't even have electronic exchanges at the time, right? Like it's
Right.
hard. It's really hard. And I also think that people are embarrassed by what happened, with everything starting with Terra Luna to 3AC to, of course, the FTX, right? So you get a little PTSD. If you're, at least if I was a regulator, I'd have a little bit of PTSD about it. And I would also think like, if I do a really good job and I do this and I go out on a limb and it works, great. I'm going to get a pat on the back or whatever. But if I go out on a limb on this and I do something wrong,
Mm.
I'm going to get my name on the front page of the paper. It's going to be terrible for me. I'll lose my job. So there's just like they're risk averse. They're regulators. I think they're like selling put options. They get a little bit of upside when things go right, but if things go wrong, they have tremendous downside, and it's a risk profile that it's hard to embrace, I would say, more than I think there's like some conspiracy going on to like keep the industry down. I think I'm not really a big conspiracy person. I'm much more, it's like hard and it's reputationally risky.
Mm. Um, with that said, though, we see that there have been some victories in court. Grayscale, of course, winning, and that opened up the Bitcoin ETF floodgates. What are your thoughts on the Bitcoin ETFs getting launched and how things have been going and the impact on the industry?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's tremendously positive, right? The people of prime investment years now, they listen to what their registered investment advisors tell them to do. Their RIAs. That's what they do. They have their money in investment accounts and they listen to their RIAs tell them how to manage that money. And RIAs buy ETFs. That's what they do. They buy ETFs. And now, of the $9 trillion of money available of this type, they got maybe put a tiny little allocation to a digital asset ETF. It's all you need, and you can see. And so I think structurally, I think it's a very good idea. And I think structurally it is bodes well for the industry, and it bodes well for retirement diversification, which is of course very important, right? So it's a win-win. And now you're hearing more talk about an Ethereum ETF. I don't know if that will happen. And they're also, this gets a bit technical, but they're not designed quite optimally yet. And so I think the next generation of ETFs will require a little bit more regulatory opening, I would say, but will be a little bit even easier for investment managers to kind of embrace and put together. But yeah,
Well,
I
I'm
think it's a
waiting
good
for
thing.
the Algorand ETF to go live.
I know. I mean, exactly right.
Maybe 2025 as ETH kicks off the altcoins and
Yeah,
it'll go down.
yeah. We have
Um,
plenty to do from now until then, anyway. Though, so we have a lot to do, and we're doing it.
for sure. So actually, before we hit the wrap up questions, what's on your 2024 roadmap? I know you talked a lot about what you guys are working on, but anything else you want to highlight?
Yeah, look, there are things, and if you are a member of our community, you are well aware of all of this stuff that we're doing. So first, and the most important thing is that we are paying for consensus. So we are going to incentivize you for maintaining this network. You play your role
Hmm.
in maintaining the security of this network by staking algos in a node. You will be compensated for that. This is a game changer for us, and this is going to go live Q2, Q3 this year. So
Great.
everybody needs to strap in for that.
I will be one and participate in that. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
100%. I mean, 100%. This is like you. I love Silvio McCauley dearly for the purist approach that he took, especially when it just didn't, because we're so lightweight. You know, good citizen should, but now we are going to start compensating you if you uphold this network. Very important, game-changing kind of thing. Second, we have relay nodes now that ferret these messages back and forth among the participation nodes. And we are going to move from that kind of hub and spoke type model to a peer-to-peer model. So like a gossip net model, which will be more decentralized. And of course, like these things go together, right? The more you can incentivize these nodes, the more you have in your gossip network, and the more quickly they can talk to each other, and the more decentralized you get. So these are like the big things. But will you give me like 2 or 3 more minutes to talk about like the totally non-sexy hard work stuff that we're doing? Yeah, because I mean, like this stuff. Okay, so this is stuff that, you know, it's a pain in the neck, sorry, for everybody to do. It matters so much though, right? And we are just like banging our head against a wall trying to get this stuff done with our community. And it requires a big ask from our developers. But we had these cryptographers. They're like the greatest, like some of the best cryptographers in the world. We lost them all. Amazon poached them all. So now they're working on like deep cryptography at Amazon. But anyway, standards would come along and they would be like, yeah, not good enough for us, right? So for example, like the passphrase is 24 words. Everywhere it's 24 words, except in Algorand, it's 25 words. Okay, because one more word is like makes it more secure. Okay, stuff like this. In other blockchains, you have a passphrase, a mnemonic, and under that mnemonic, you can have a number of accounts, multiple accounts, and under each account, you can have multiple addresses. This is not a system that we have in Algorand. The system in Algorand is like we conflate this idea of an address and an account. And so this means that we can't participate in a lot of things easily. So for example, somebody that has an account with a bunch of Ethereum addresses could add an Algorand address if we had the same 24 words and we had the same kind of account structure, but they don't do that. And so we as a community have been very inward looking, and we build things for each other, but we have got to start building things according to the standards that everybody else is using so that we can be, that we can play across all this in a multi-chain world, right? And this stuff is hard because making these changes is hard. So if you're like ParaWallet, for example, and you're going to move to this like more account-based system, well, then you got to offer kind of the address-based and the account-based at the same time. How are you going to do your UX? It's like this stuff is like really tricky in the beginning, but it has to be done. The other thing that we have to do is tie real-world identity to on-chain digital identity, right? And if you don't do that, you can't get payments business. So we have payment companies that want to use Algorand. They're like, of course we want to use you. You have instant finality. You're fast. You do 10,000 transactions per second. But like, you can't, I can't hive off. I can't KYC at an account level. I can just get your addresses. Well, by the way, don't your addresses have balances on them? I can't, and my regulator is not going to let me make a payment and reveal your balance to whoever you make a payment to. Like, that's not a thing. I can't do that. I can't get that done. So we need to be able to wrap in a privacy wrapper. We got to be able to KYC you by attaching real world identity to on-chain identity. And I got to be able to put you in a little privacy bubble for my regulator so that I am not revealing information about payments. And, you guys get that done. And then we want to use Algorand. But and I've got a list, Tony, of like 5 of these things that are just like not sexy, not fun. But this is the job of the Algorand Foundation to fix these things. We are in the excuse elimination business is what we're in, really, not so much the picking sectors business, right? It's hard to build on Algorand. Boom, let's make it easy to build on Algorand. We can't talk to other things. Boom, let's figure out why it is that we can't talk to other things. Like this is the kind of thing we're not listed on exchanges. We got to make sure we're listed on every exchange. Like this is the kind of stuff that we spend our time really, really, really focused on.
Yeah, that absolutely makes sense. And I'm excited for these updates. And I know it's a work in progress. Things don't happen overnight. It takes time. And it sounds like Amazon stole some of your developers.
They stole some cryptographers,
Oh, cryptographers, excuse me.
some brainiac cryptographers, but
Um,
our CTO is pretty, and our chief architect, they are not without knowledge of cryptography. So we're
yeah,
still in good shape. And of course we still have Silvio, of course, right?
yeah.
But they were like safety over everything. And oh, we don't like it how they do over there at Ethereum. It's like, well, that's great, except that, the Ethereum is setting the standard for the thing. And so we have to kind of, so there was a little bit of that going on. I'm business-like, and I would say the foundation was not very business-like when I got here. And so there was a lot of like purist, let's go slow, let's make sure, the cryptography, all of this. And it's like, no, like we gotta play it. We gotta play in the world, and we gotta, people gotta find Planet Algorand, and we gotta start, taking over the universe. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. All right, I got some wrap-up questions here for you because I know we're a
Okay.
little bit over time. First is, if you could create your own metaverse, what would the theme be?
Kindness. If you want to come into my metaverse, you better be kind. Don't be lobbing accusations at people like on social media. Don't, pick fights in front of a million people. Be nice to people. Assume that they have good intent. Assume maybe you don't have the full story of what's going on,
Yeah.
and just lead with being nice. It would be a very kind place. I'd kick you right out if you started being mean to people.
And I got some rapid fire questions. Favorite
Okay.
food?
Spanakopita. I'm Greek, and spanakopita, and I stand by that as the bed, my desert island food. Yeah.
Favorite musician or band?
Favorite musician Bob Dylan, and favorite band Yola Tango.
Favorite movie?
Uh, Lawrence of Arabia, I think all time, but there's others I like Rushmore. I like a lot of movies, but maybe I think Lawrence of Arabia. Yeah,
I haven't seen that movie in a while.
it's a
Um,
good movie. It holds up. It
yeah.
holds up.
Favorite book?
Favorite book. I guess anything by Faulkner for sure. But recently, if I go to like books that I start buying and I start giving to my friends, most recently it'd be James McBride books, Deacon King Kong, Good Lord Bird, great books. If I go back a little bit further, I was giving everybody The Martian, Gentleman in Moscow. I was a little bit further back, City of Thieves, The Wonder Boys. These are books that I've loved, and but more recently, read these James McBride books are so good. He's such a good writer. They're funny. They're incredibly well written.
That's awesome. And
Yeah,
I'll have to check some of those out. When you're not working at the foundation, what are you doing for fun as a hobby or pastime?
I am losing at tennis. I'm getting my ass kicked at tennis. That's what I'm doing. Yeah. I have my
Staci,
dogs, and but yeah, mostly I'm failing to get better at tennis. Is my hobby.
well, Staci, absolute pleasure chatting with you. I am looking forward to the new updates around Algorand, and certainly, I'll have to talk to you guys offline about the staking component and earning off of
I'll
that.
hook you up. I'll hook you
Yeah.
up. I'll hook you up.
Awesome.
Okay. Algorand Foundation, get this man a pillow. Get this man a pillow.
Awesome. Thank you, Staci.
Thank you so much, Tony. I appreciate you.